Traveling the Vortex. Side Trip.
Hi everybody, this is Chrissy coming to you live from my bedroom. This is the night before Salt Lake Comic Con, and I got talking to Glenn on Twitter, and I was asking him if he needed or wanted anything for the podcast from Comic Con, and if any bumpers or anything. And when we were done talking, he said, "Well, I hope to get some updates from you. Maybe some audio updates." And I got thinking, I could do that. I could pull that off. I could talk. I mean, I was listening to some of our galley updates recently just to get myself in the con-going mood. And the whole time, I have to apologize because I sound so fangirl flaily there. I mean, that I shouldn't apologize for being that, but I kind of said a few things that were like not very dignified. And I didn't know what I was saying, so this is why I blog, everybody. I don't mind talking and having a discussion, but it takes me a while to think my thoughts through. So anyway, but I don't mind talking a little bit about my experiences with Salt Lake Comic Con, because I'm way excited about this. The announcement that we were actually getting a Comic Con came probably in March. I know it was like soon after Galley was over, and it was a fantastic news, because you wouldn't think so, but there's a strong geek culture here in Utah. Most people know Utah for the LDS Church, obviously, as a main one, but also a lot of people know us for skiing and hiking and mountains and red rocks and all kinds of outdoorsy stuff, which is fine. It's not something I'm into, but anything that makes my state look good, I'm up for that. But I got looking at some of these other comparable cities. I mean, Salt Lake itself isn't that big, but Salt Lake metro area is pretty huge, considering how many people are here and stuff. I don't know where I was going with that thought. I'm sorry. But there are a lot of us who are geeks. There's a lot of local authors around here. We do have the guy, one of the founders of Pixar, actually went to the University of Utah. I'm not sure if he is actually from here, and I'd have to double check, make sure it actually is the University of Utah. It's either that or BYU down in Provo. But there's a lot of tech industry down here, up here, and things like that. So it's kind of surprising that. Oh, and a lot of movies get filmed out here. Doctor Who was filmed in Utah for a couple of episodes, The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon, which that will never not be cool. Those will always be some of my favorite episodes, because they sheer virtue of the fact that they were filmed here. I mean, and they are good episodes, but it's a good thing they are too. But just kind of some things I'm looking forward to at the convention tonight. Just barely, they've spaced out a lot of the guest announcements just to kind of keep up that anticipation and excitement. But they saved one of the biggest announcements for last, and that is that Stan Lee, the godfather of Marvel Comics, will be at Salt Lake Comic Con. He's only going to be here on Saturday, which, while I did not grow up reading comics other than Garfield, I have enjoyed the Marvel comic book hero movies in recent years, and that is due in no small part, I'm sure, to Stan Lee's storytelling and character development in the comics, and just the kind of the groundwork that he laid. Because when you have a movie adaptation of whether it's a book or a comic book or whatever, you have to have that good source material, and Stan and all the big names at Marvel, I can't think of them right now because I'm really not that big into it, but they laid that groundwork, and so now we can have these fantastic movies and these great characters. So that's pretty big. Another big name that was announced early on was William Shatner, Captain Kirk from Star Trek, Adam West and Burt Ward, Batman and Robin from the 1960s Batman, which I have seen, and it's fun. They're fun to watch. So those guys are going to be here. Kevin Sorbo from Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, which I watched when I was younger. Not faithfully, but I remember it. I guess he actually has a house here in Utah, so it was kind of duh. Of course he's going to be here. I have to think who else is going to be here. I'm sure I'll think of others that as the con goes on, and I record updates because now I finally figured out how to do it. Um, another big group that I personally am excited about because hey, I'm a librarian, are some authors, and there are a lot of local authors that are coming. One in particular I'm excited to meet. Well, I've already met her before, but it's Jessica Day George. I'm sorry, Jessica, I slaughtered your name. I didn't mean to do that. I've actually met her because she comes to one of the library branches and works on her books sometimes. And when I'm there, I don't bug her because I'm like, oh, she's working. But it's neat to be like, hey, I'm in the same vicinity as where these books are being written and created, and it's kind of cool. And she brings her kids to some of the library programming, and she's really sweet and awesome. And so she's going to be here, or she's going to be there promoting her books, which I highly recommend for anyone. She does like high elementary, young adult novels. The covers look girly, I will not lie. One series is like the Princess of the Midnight Ball, Princess of the Silver Woods, and there was a third one in the middle that I can't remember now. I'm sorry. But then there's the Dragon Slippers trilogy and the Tuesdays at the Castle series, which is Wednesdays in the Tower. The second one just came out, and there'll be another one. So if you have little bookworms in your house, or if you enjoy young adult novels and they're kind of fantasy, you'll enjoy that. Larry Correia is another author he's a local guy. His blog is hilarious. I read it all the time and I just enjoy it. He writes Monster Hunter International, which is sort of a self-proclaimed B-movie sci-fi monster movie type of novel. So it's pretty unique. And also the Grim Noir Chronicles, which I thoroughly enjoyed and highly recommend. It's sort of it's like a 1930s mobster cop movie with magic, so it's kind of an interesting combination there. Also, who else is coming? Robison Wells, who wrote Variant, which is a dystopia horror young adult novel. It's about this academy where these kids get these big scholarships, but it turns out this school is not all that it seems. And Variant was actually nominated last year for a Beehive Award in the state of Utah. It's our version of the Newbery and Caldecott medal. So, and it's not really a committee I'm on, but I read for the committee to decide on the nominees. So I kind of have a vested interest in that one. So anyway, he's going to be there, Robison Wells. Oh yeah, and Jessica Day George also has a nominee this year for the Beehive Awards Tuesdays at the Castle. Forgot to mention that. Trying to think who else there. David Farland, who's a big sci-fi or fantasy author. He's from here. I haven't read his stuff, but I've heard good things about it. So he's going to be at Comic-Con. Oh, who else? Let's see. I talked about the actors. Oh, Weta Workshop. I forgot to mention them. They're the company that worked on the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies. They're going to be at Comic-Con. This is their first North American convention that is not San Diego Comic-Con, which I think is huge. I don't know if anybody else thinks that's a big deal, but I do, because San Diego is its own animal, and everybody goes to that. But other conventions, to get something like that's only been at San Diego from New Zealand, I'm just like, yay! And it's the Hobbit. It's the guys that worked on the Hobbit. So, and I kind of learning to appreciate and understand behind the scenes special effects work. So I'm excited just to go see their booth that's going to be set up in there. Trying to think of some other people who are going to be there. Oh yeah. So when I was in elementary and middle school, I loved the Power Rangers. That was my thing growing up. I went from Ninja Turtles to Power Rangers, and those first couple of seasons in that first movie will always be near and dear to my heart. As campy and cheesy as they are, it's a little bit like Flash Gordon, But I still love it, and we actually have two of the original Power Rangers coming to Comic-Con. One is Walter Jones, who played Zack, who's the Black Ranger. He's going to be there. And the other one is my personal favorite, who played Billy the Blue Ranger, David Yost. And Billy was always my favorite, and I was really glad that he stuck around for more seasons, because they kind of had some interchange there. But he and the girl who played Kimberly, Amy Jo Johnson, those two were my favorite And so I was ecstatic when they announced that David Yost would be at Comic-Con, and I've heard he's a really cool guy, so I'm excited to meet him. I don't think I've talked about Dorium yet. Simon Fisher Becker, for us Doctor Who fans, will be at Salt Lake Comic Con. Friend of the show, Simon Fisher Becker, who has been on this podcast a couple of times. So that was the one I mentioned in feedback some time ago, that he was going to be here. So I'm excited to meet him and to say, hey, I'm a traveling the Vortex girl groupie, whatever you want to call us, and just say hello to him. I've heard, we heard from Sean and Mel when they met him at Galley that he's a very kind and gracious person, and it'll be an interesting experience to meet him, and I'm excited for it. So just to kind of illustrate why, like how exciting this is. I think I said before, Utah has a pretty strong geek culture that's kind of flown under the radar in recent years. Like we're known for our outdoorsy sort of things and things like that. So we have outdoorsy conventions, and we've had scrapbooking conventions, and all this while throughout the years, I would think, why can't we have a sci-fi fantasy convention, something I would enjoy, because I'm not really into the outdoors. I'm not into those crafty things. I don't get on Pinterest or any of those things and look up for frills and flair and things. I enjoy it well enough, but I'm not really that into it. And so to have a Comic-Con, to have something with a Comic-Con name is pretty huge. And I understand that it's not something given that you get lightly, although I may be wrong with that. And I see, San Diego's its own thing, but I see other cities who have comic conventions. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but like even Kansas City, I see what you guys have and it's like, why can't we have that here? Maybe a scaled back version. So I'm really hoping that this is a success. As far as I can tell, it has been so far. It was actually scheduled to be at a smaller convention center originally, as the Southtown Convention Center down at the south end of the Salt Lake Valley. But apparently they sold so many tickets, there was so much interest that they actually had to move it to the larger Salt Palace, which is a convention center in downtown Salt Lake City. And just to give you an idea of how big this place is, it used to be a basketball arena, and then about 20 years ago, maybe 30 by now, holy cow. No, it was 20 years ago. They converted it to a convention center when they built a new basketball arena for the Utah Jazz. So it's a pretty big building, and we're taking up, well, the convention is taking up half of it. I was getting my registration early today. I have my wristband on right now because I was afraid I would lose it. So I'm like, I better put this on now. And I was just kind of walking around to get a feel for where everything was. Where all the drinking fountains and the restrooms and ATMs and stuff like that, where all the doors are. So, because tomorrow there are going to be a lot of people there, and we have half the building, and it is going to be fantastic. The rest of this week, I am so looking forward to it. I am looking forward to giving you all a glimpse of my experiences. I will keep you all updated and send in feedback as I can. Hopefully I'll be able to do this every night. Hopefully I'm not too tired. Tomorrow I am actually working the library's booth in the vendor's room. The Salt Lake County Library, which is the system I work for, has a booth, and then Salt Lake City Library we're teaming up together. So there's going to be that contingent. So I hope I get to see some Vortex listeners. I've kind of put myself out there and said, hey, come say hello. And I know this won't go out. If it goes out, it won't go out until after the convention. But I'm hoping to see some people there. So I will sign off now so I can go get some sleep. It's almost midnight. I've been talking for a long time. Finally got the audio equipment to work. So this is Chrissy in Salt Lake City for Salt Lake Comic Con, unofficially, and traveling the Vortex girl, whatever you want to call me. I am signing off finally. And you all have a wonderful, wonderful night.